Hi, my name is Jeanne Norris and I work at the Institute for School Partnership at Washington University here in St. Louis. Today I'll be teaching science for 3rd grade, but learners of all ages are welcome to join me. I'm so glad you're here with me today. As you can tell, it is a very special day. It is almost Halloween, and so I decided to dress up for this episode. Do you like dressing up for Halloween? What characters do you like dressing up as? Well, I like to dress up as some of my heroes and my favorite people that interest me. So do you know who I am? If you watch PBS shows, I bet you might know who I am. Her name is Aviva, and she is on the Wildcrats. Aviva is a biomechanical engineer, and that is a job where she uses bio or biology or living things and mechanics or how things move to make really cool inventions. And so she makes the Wildcrats creature power suits, and I think that that is really cool because today is all about creature powers. So we are going to explore some of the ways that living things look all throughout this episode. Doesn't that sound like fun? And I have something really special to show you, a surprise from one of my friends and a surprise field trip somewhere. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. We even dressed up our dog Wayne. Can you tell what PBS character he is? I'll give you a hint. He says, "Tally-ho!" Yeah, he's Nature Cat. We really like Nature Cat in our house. Oh, Wayne's off to a nature adventure. Okay, so remember, one of the best ways to figure out things about the world around us is to notice and wonder. So let's go ahead and make a chart so that we can keep track of what we do while we notice and wonder. So for notice, you can draw an eye to represent things that you observe. For wonder, you can draw a question mark for questions that you ask about what you notice or observe. And you can do this at home too if you want. We just make a little T-chart like this so we can keep track of everything we notice and wonder. All right, so I promised you a surprise from my friend, so let's go ahead and take a look. This is my friend's dog, Birdie. Isn't Birdie so sweet and adorable? They adopted her from a rescue organization. We're going to think about what we notice and wonder about Birdie and the surprise that she had for her new owners. Let's take a look at what happened.
What are you doing out here? Birdie. Good girl.
These puppies were a huge surprise to my friends. Now they had Birdie to take care of, as well as all of these little babies. What do you notice and wonder about them? Here are a couple of pictures where the puppies are standing more still. Again, let's observe and ask questions about them. Wow, those puppies were so adorable. If I didn't already have enough pets, I would totally have wanted to adopt one. Okay, so let's see what we notice and wonder about those puppies. What do you think? What did you notice? Let's start with that. I noticed that some of the puppies were light colored and some of the puppies were dark colored. So I'll write the puppies had different fur colors. I noticed that some were bigger and some were smaller. some puppies were bigger than others? How many puppies did you count? Did you try? I tried, and I counted 7. Okay. Anything else that you noticed? There's probably a lot to notice. They made little crying sounds to their mom. That could be another thing that you noticed. All right. How about some questions that you have? I bet you have a lot. I wonder, why did some of the puppies look like the mom, but some of the puppies didn't? So why did some puppies have the same fur color as mom, but some didn't? What else? Maybe you wonder, what did the dad look like? Because maybe he had the other fur color. What else? Maybe you wonder why some puppies were bigger than the others. You might also be wondering something like, what kind of dog is that? What kind of dog is Birdie? And what kind of dog was the dad? Why were they making those whining noises? Those are all really great questions to ask too. All right, so it looks like we have a pretty good list of our noticings and wonderings about Birdie and her puppies. I bet you have some more questions that you might want to add to the list. I know that I do actually, because seeing Birdie and her puppies made me wonder about my own pet. Do you have a pet at home? What kind of a pet is it? Where did you get it from? Do you ever wonder what your pet looked like as a puppy, or did you know it as a puppy or a baby? Well, our dog Wayne, we did not know him as a puppy. We actually adopted him from a really special place called the Humane Society. And the Humane Society is an adoption and rescue facility, which means that they take care of animals that have been neglected or sick, and they make sure that they find homes where they will be taken care of really well. So I thought that it would be cool to visit the Humane Society and see another example of some puppies and their mom, and see if there's any patterns that we can notice between Birdie's puppies and these puppies that we're going to see in just a second here. All right, so are you ready to visit the Humane Society? Let's go ahead and take a look. This mama dog's name is Reese's. Can you see why? She's kind of cute, like a peanut butter cup, I think. And she was extra sweet and excited to see us. These are her puppies. And as you can tell, they have a lot of puppy energy. We really wanted to hold each of the puppies and take a closer look at them. Here's puppy number 1. How does it compare to mom? How does it compare to its sisters or brothers? You can compare its fur color, fur length, eye color, or how it acts. You can also compare other things, like its tail shape or face shape, ear shape, paw shape, body size, body shape. There are lots of different traits that we can observe about this puppy. Here's puppy number 2. Okay, this one might be my favorite. Look at that face! Oh my goodness. Well, how does it compare to its mom? How about to its brothers and sisters? What traits do you notice? Again, remember, you can look at fur length, fur color, eye color, nose color, paw shape, body size, body shape, ear shape, face shape. There sure are a lot of different traits that you can think of with puppies. Here's puppy number 3. This one's a little bit more squirmy. How do its traits compare to its mom? How do its traits compare to its brothers and sisters? Look for similarities and differences. Think about its fur color, fur length, eye color, nose color, ear shape, body shape or size, paw shape or size. How does it compare? And here's puppy number 4. This one was extra squirmy. It really wanted to be down on the ground. But how does it compare to its mom or to its brothers and sisters in terms of how it looks? Oh gosh, okay little guy. All right, we'll put you down. The puppies and mom finally calmed down after a while. They were really excited to be out and about. Now that they're calm, let's take one more look at their physical appearance or their traits. Compare the mom to the babies and the babies to each other. How are they similar or different? All right, I hope that you had fun looking at the mama and her puppies. And now what we're going to do is we're going to analyze our data. Now, we took a lot of data in. I think it might be helpful if I reminded you what Birdie and her puppies looked like. And I can even show you some pictures of when they got a little bit bigger. All right, let's take a look. Here's Birdie, the mama, and here are some of her babies. They're a little bit bigger than what I showed you in the original video so that you can see some of their traits more clearly. All right, so that was a good reminder for you. Now let's go ahead and start to record and analyze some data. Now, we saw a lot of things just now, and what we have to do is figure out how to organize what we have seen. That's something that scientists do. They have to create data tables so that they can organize whatever data they've collected in a way that makes sense so that they can tell patterns in their data, okay, and make conclusions about their data. So let's take a look at this data table and how it is set up. What I was trying to see the differences in are dog traits, okay? And so we have dog traits like fur color, fur length, and eye color. Then we have different dog families that we looked at. First, we looked at Birdie, who is a parent, and Birdie's pups, which are her offspring. Offspring is a word that means children, okay? Like the children that a parent has, that's their offspring. So we have Birdie and Birdie's pups, parent and offspring, that's pair number 1, family number 1. Then we have Reese's, the pup or the dog from the Humane Society. So Reese's is the parent, and Reese's pups are the offspring or her children. So that's family 2, okay? So what we are going to do together is write some of the traits that we noticed in each of these different groups. All right, so think with me here. For fur color, do you remember Birdie's fur color? It was kind of a mix of black and white and a little bit of like a coppery brown. So I'm going to record that. Okay. And how about Birdie's fur length? I would say it's kind of long. Like maybe medium long. And how about her eye color? They were dark brown. Okay, now we need some of the traits that we saw in Birdie's pups. So do you remember? Half of them were black and white, and the other half were like a light tan and white. So let's record that. Okay, so we had two different variations of these traits. How about their fur length? I think it was kind of a mixture. Some were short and some were medium long. And how about the eye color? Most of them looked brown to me. Or dark brown. Okay, how about Reese's colors? Reese's was kind of a chocolate brown with some kind of spots, like little tiny spots or speckles. Okay, how about Reese's fur length? It was very short. And how about her eye color? It was brown. Okay, now how about Reese's pups? They were kind of all over the place with fur color, weren't they? We had one that was black with brown spots or speckles. We had one that was light, sort of tan. We had one that was even lighter with some white as well. And we had one that was really pretty similar to Mom with a chocolate brown color. Lots of variation in that trait of fur color. Variation means difference, by the way. Okay, so fur length. So what do you think? What did you notice in those pups? I noticed that they mostly all seemed short, except for one puppy did seem to have longer hair. So we'll say very short, and then we did have one with longer hair. Okay, and then how about eye color? I noticed that some of them were brown and some of them were almost like a grayish or a hazel sort of a color, almost blue even. So we'll say bluish or hazel. Okay? All right, so we have got a lot of data here, and now we need to make sense of our data. What do you think? What does this data tell us about dog parents and their offspring or their children? Let's see, what's one pattern that I notice? Well, a pattern that I notice is that the parent at least has some similarity to some of the pups, right? So some of the pups had black and white fur like Birdie. Some of the pups had medium long fur like Birdie. And they all had pretty much her eye color. I noticed that same pattern, that's a pattern that I noticed down here too. So some of the pups had the chocolate brown fur, some of the pups had very short fur like Birdie or Reese's, and some of the pups had brown eyes like Reese's had. So that is a similarity that I notice across these families and from parent to offspring. What's another pattern that you notice? I notice that both of these families have differences. So they have ways that they are different from their mom. So not all of the pups were black and white. Some of them had light tan. Some of them had shorter fur. And some of them, well, actually, they didn't really have a difference in eye color. Okay? But the same is true down here with Reese's family. Some of them had the black with brown, so they weren't fully chocolate brown. Some of them were even light tan and white. That's a difference. One of them actually had longer hair. And one of them had bluish or hazel eyes. So both families have similarities from mom to offspring, and differences from mom to offspring. That's a pattern that we can notice. If you also notice, they also had similarities and differences from brother to sister. So some brothers and sisters looked very similar in Birdie's family. They had black and white fur. And some brothers and sisters had light tan and white fur. So they had similarities and differences from brother to sister too. We notice this across many different types of living things. And let's talk about why that might be. So when we started out today, we had some noticings and wonderings about Birdie and her pups. We wondered why some puppies had the same fur color as mom, but some did not. We wondered what the dad might look like, or why some puppies might be bigger than the others. And so now we've collected all of this data, we've looked and found some more evidence that this is a pattern, that organisms are similar yet different. And so now we have to explain why. Why is that? What do you think? Why is that? Well, let's take a look at some definitions that might help us. Here are some definitions of words that might help us put together an explanation. The first word I kind of said while we were filling out our data table, and that is offspring. So offspring means children. So Birdie's pups are her offspring. Reese's pups are her offspring. The next word is traits, and I've been using that word a lot today. The definition of it is what an organism looks like or acts like. So examples of traits in dogs, what do you think? What would those be? Yeah, fur color, fur length, eye color, body shape, things like that. And so then we have this word inheritance, which I have not used yet. So let's talk about what that means. It is when living things pass on traits to their offspring. And see, I color-coded it so you could think about what that definition means. It's when living things pass on what they look like to their children. Okay, so that is answering some of our question, right? Some of our questions that we had. We were wondering why they looked a little bit like Birdie but not exactly alike. And that's because they inherited some of their traits from Birdie. Where do you think the other traits came from? It would probably be the dad, right? So that is where some of the traits come from as well. An offspring is a blend of their mom and their dad's traits. So that is basically answering our question. But really, this story is a lot more complex than just getting things from your mom or dad. So let's take a look at an example. And I know that we talked a lot about puppies today, but we're also going to talk about plants because plants go through this same process. They have traits, they have offspring when they reproduce, and they have traits that are inherited from their parents. It's weird to think about plants having parents, but they do. So let's take a look at an example. Here are my friend Kim's green beans. Look at how huge the plant got. Here are my green beans. I will tell you what, they did not get huge. They didn't hardly grow at all. Why do you think that might have happened? You can bet I was pretty jealous of my friend Kim's green bean harvest. She had dozens of green beans and I only maybe had 5 out of those little plants. Why do you think that might have been? Well, one option has to do with these definitions that we were just talking about. Maybe the seeds that I had came from parent plants that were really short, and she had seeds from parent plants that were really tall. That would be one way. Another way would be because of the environment. So you don't just get your traits from your inheritance. You also get them from your environment too. The environment is the place that a living thing is in. So how might that help explain what happened with my poor, sad green bean plants? Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that I planted them next to the tomato plants, and the sun moves across the sky during the day, and it ends up that the tomato plants are hogging all of the sun from the green bean plants. Maybe they're hogging the water too, I don't know. So that's what I think. I think that it was the environment that caused those traits. So living things don't just get their traits from their inheritance, from their parents. It's a mixture of what they get from their parents plus the environment that they are in. What do you think? Do you really like animals? Would you like a job where you're working with animals every day? There are lots of jobs out there that you could do that with, and I'm going to show you one example. So let's take a look at a veterinarian from the Humane Society. His name is Dr. Travis Arndt, and he's going to tell you what his job is like and why he likes it.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Travis Arndt. I'm a veterinarian with the Humane Society of Missouri's Animal Medical Center in Mid-America. My day as a veterinarian is very unpredictable. So it can go from seeing routine puppy kitten exams, helping educate owners about flea preventative, to going and doing emergency surgery, or seeing a patient with severe medical emergencies that we have to go and intervene and perform life-saving care. What I like about being a veterinarian is that it's very unpredictable. It's very busy. It's very rewarding being able to help people and be able to help their pets. And I couldn't think of myself doing anything else.
Well, I had a lot of fun exploring with you today. I bet that you have more questions based on what you've experienced. And you should try to explore those questions this week and see what you can figure out on your own. You can also go outside and look at all of the traits that you can see in any of the living things around you and see if you can find any variation in those traits. We were just looking at acorns outside, and my son found a whole lot of different variation in those acorns. Some were big, some were small. Some had stripes, some were light brown, some were dark brown. And we were noticing that variation and wondering what causes it and what does it mean for that living thing. So I hope that you get outside and do some of your own explorations of traits, or you can look at your pets and think about how there's variation of traits there. And you can record your data and look for patterns too. All right, I had a great time with you. I hope that you keep on noticing and wondering all week long. Remember, that is the most important thing that you can do in this world. All right, thank you for joining me. I'll see you later.
Teaching in Room 9 is made possible with support of Bank of America, Dana Brown Charitable Trust, Emerson, and viewers like you.